Well, this Energy Cooperation Forum and others organised by the BRICS Business Council and the Department of Trade, Industry and Cooperation at Galagher Estate. All of this a prelude to the main event next week. The BRICS Trade Fair and Business Engagements are happening ahead of the summit to be held in Sandton. Let's find our economics editor, Tsepo Mangwai, in Midrand at the moment. Tsepo, I was there earlier, and if the organisation is anything to go by, it is going to be a successful summit. Tell us about day one.
Absolutely. We are still here in Midrand as we wrap up day one of the BRICS Business Council, marked with a lot of discussions and dialogues around the issue of mainly increasing cooperation between four different countries. And you know what was quite striking for me? There were quite frank and open discussions about various issues. Delegates were open and frank about issues of cooperation, but also about challenges that we still have to overcome. And one gets to really appreciate and understand that we are four different countries, and there's a lot of areas that we need to improve and harmonize and understand each other in terms of our cultural differences, in terms of our policies, and in terms of how we do things. As we wrap up the day today, I'm now joined by the DDG in the Department of Trade and Industry, Lerato Mataboge, just to tell us what the day been for you. What were some of the highlights of the first day?
Well, today was quite an important milestone, not just for South Africa. In the BRIC Africa relationship, we've just launched the first BRIC Africa exhibition, industrial exhibition launched by the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition to really showcase South Africa's industrial capability. And the rest of Africa is also exhibiting here. And the reason we have this exhibition is we want to address the fact that we want to access the BRIC markets. And to do so, they need to see what we produce. They need to see our capabilities. So it's been quite important to have what we call the product showcase of what we produce. And then similarly, we were launching what we call the knowledge hub. And this is where we've been having interesting conversations around policy, around cooperation, around strategically how do we work together for investment and trade. And as you're aware, we started today with the Energy Symposium as a topical area graced by the Minister that is responsible for mineral resources and the Minister of Infrastructure to have a conversation around what sort of investments do we need around energy infrastructure? What sort of regulatory, landscape do we need to have? So we'll be continuing to showcase the products and throughout the week have all of these conversations around topical areas. On Monday, for example, the 21st, we have a manufacturing, what we call a manufacturing forum. So we'll be talking about the future of manufacturing, green manufacturing, electric vehicle components, etc. So the whole week we'll be having very interesting conversations about the future and how we achieve inclusive growth.
One of the issues that came out very strongly is value addition, and we know that our export is largely raw materials that we export to the likes of China, and now the focus is starting to be on beneficiation and adding value. How is that going in terms of even the exhibition that you've displayed here?
We were quite deliberate to say we want to have an industrial exhibition, because it's one thing for us to bemoan the fact that we export mainly commodities to the world, really, not just to BRIC economies. And it's another thing to then get to show the world what capability that we have in industrialization and what our future plans are to further industrialize. So this exhibition for us is that milestone because, we were quite deliberate to bring what we, believe is the best of the best at this point. From your Lodox machine that will scan you in minutes to, your unmanned huge drone and many other such technologies that we brought on board to be seen for potential orders by our BRIC countries and any other visitor that will be here to have, to grace us with their presence. What also makes this very important is the first time we meet in person since 2020, since COVID. So from a tourism standpoint as well, it's quite a very important week for us to be able to put our best foot forward as a country.
Others are saying this is not just a South African BRICS, it's an African BRICS. where you've invited a lot of African countries to take part in this. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yes, we have. We made sure we've got about 50 African countries that are also exhibiting the best of what they produce. We've got fantastic Ghanaian chocolates that are here, and already today alone we've already made the link between the Ghanaian cocoa producers and South African sugar producers and milk producers to see how we can have a made in Africa, the value chain made in Africa chocolate, for example. So there's quite a number of interesting showcases from the continent. And we take that very seriously because we are deliberate in saying whatever interactions we have globally as a country, have to be reflective of our position, as a commitment, as a committed member of the integration of Africa. So we try to make sure that we bring in the continent. We will be having an AGOA forum in November, for example. Again, we're taking the posture that says, let this be an African conversation, not just a South African conversation. So then that's the posture you'll see going forward much more, intensely, as it were.
One of the issues that came out strongly raised by delegates is that there's still a lot of hurdles that business still have to overcome in terms of export, harmonizing tariffs, regulations, and so forth. What progress has been made in that particular area?
In terms of some of the barriers to trade, particularly non-tariff barriers, I think we've made a lot of progress, particularly at bilateral level. I'll give you an example of, we've just resolved access of beef to China, for example, which was the work that was done by our Agriculture Department working together with the DTIC. The biggest hurdle, though, are our behind-the-border challenges, infrastructure, port infrastructure, energy infrastructure. Before we even get to outside hurdles. Our internal hurdles are what we are looking at. And part of the conversation today, for example, on energy was around also helping us as a country to overcome some of those hurdles, and not just really about external investors, but about ourselves and how we view and what plans we have in place to resolve those. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. That's Lerato Mataboge. He's with the Department of Trade and Industry. What I like about this is that there are very few closed sessions, a lot of openness and access to the media that we've really, really enjoyed, and I hope that it continues until tomorrow into Monday, hopefully the rest of the BRICS Summit. From me, it's Hepo Mwai in Midrand. I hand it over to you, Francis.
Thank you very much, SABC News' economics editor.